Before I get on to that, I'd just like to thank a few people. First, my mom, my grandmother, my step-grandfather, my cousins, my aunt and uncle, and so my family back in Germany, and my step-grandfather. Thank you to you guys for motivating me, for keeping me sharp. I really appreciate it. The next two people that I'd like to thank are Tim Hornsby from CBC and Joe Warmington from the Toronto Sun and News Talk 1010. I had the pleasure of meeting both of those gentlemen on the way back from a train to from Montreal to Toronto, and I just come from which they were at as well. We just come from the Argos and Montreal Alouette game, which was the Eastern Conference Final in 2012. In the CFL, for those of you who don't know who the Toronto Argonauts and the Montreal Alouettes are. And I had the pleasure of talking sports with them. Tim Hornsby had picked out that I was wearing an Argos hat. I think I had an Argos jacket maybe, and he said, "Hey, were you at the game? Just wanted to talk. He's a reporter, so maybe he wanted to pick up a quote or two." And he ended up putting me in one of his articles, which was great. And Joe Warmington as well for giving me the opportunity to join you on your show, The Late Night Shift, with News Talk 1010. Thank you for all the times you let me come on, and we had some great conversations about CFL football and what the Toronto Blue Jays were doing at the time in 2013 when they'd traded Ferrari Dickey from the Mets and Jose Reyes, Josh Johnson, Mark Burley from the Marlins, and some of the other players they'd acquired. So thank you for having me on and talking about that. It was a great experience. And Tim Hornsby, you opened up many doors for me. I was able to be on national television on CBC. It was a great experience, and ended up doing some interviews on CB24, which was great. And thank you very much for those paths that you led me towards and have given me many opportunities now to this day. So thank you very much. The next man I'd like to thank is a man that I met in middle school at Deer Park Public School, which is just St. Clair and Yonge in Toronto. Brian Nugent, former CFL player. I didn't know him previously. I've done some work with the Toronto Argonauts, and in the past when I was a kid, we never crossed paths. But I had the opportunity of meeting him. He came and spoke to our gym class in grade 8, I believe, and I approached him after. I said, "Thank you. He's a motivational speaker." I said, "Thank you. You said a lot of encouraging things and helped not just me but people around me on a better path in their life." And we started talking about football, everything. He ended up saying, "Hey, let's go grab a bite." We went to Subway, talked some more, and he said, "You should really start a sports show, especially focused on football." He said, I think you have a lot of great things to say." And here I am now. So thank you very much, Mr. Nugent. I appreciate all the support that you gave me, and I hope you're doing well. The next person I'd like to thank is one of my good friends, somebody that I don't know if there's somebody more knowledgeable than him that I know of that I've met about sports. Jacob Latham. You've taught me a lot, and the debates that we've had over the past 7 years since I met you in high school have been able to give me some more insight on sport, and hopefully you've learned a thing or two from me. But thank you. I hope you're doing well. Unfortunately, we found out that Jacob was diagnosed with leukemia about 2 weeks ago. I found out, and I just wanted to say on behalf of all your friends and me that I hope you're getting better, and we're cheering for. We want you to get better, and Shark Strong. Shark Nation. And thank you very much for being a good friend, and hope you're doing better already every day. I know you're telling me, so thank you very much for just being a good friend. And now on to the topic. The best players some of the best players in the NBA right now that I believe are going to make the top 25 greatest players of all time, and join the likes of players such as Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. So the first player I'd like to start off with, who I would say a strong, when I say a strong majority, I mean hopefully almost 100% of people would say that a man by the name of LeBron James, aka the King. He's personally my second-ranked player of all time. Some days I wake up and I say, you know what, I think he might be better than Michael Jordan. And he's a terrific player, obviously. It surprises me the amount of people that don't have him in their top 5, and even the people that don't have him in their top 10. Because he's one of the most dominating players of all time. And, we're talking about a 4-time MVP. We're talking about a 3-time NBA champ, 8 finals appearances. What more do you want? He's still one of the best defensive players in the league. He can guard at all 5 positions. He can go one-on-one within all 5 positions. He can take you in the paint. He can take you, starting crossing halfway. He can put a power dribble on it and just, speed by defenders and physically dominate his defenders. So he has to be on that list. And the next player that I would also put on this list is Kevin Durant. Again, we're talking about a 2-time scoring champ. He's won an MVP. Who knows if he didn't join, the Warriors, he might not have an NBA title. He has 2 NBA titles, but I think we would definitely see him winning another scoring title, because in my mind he might be the best all-around scorer in the NBA. And I think many people would make that argument. He's a 4-time scoring champion, and he didn't win a scoring title when he was playing with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, but it kind of makes sense that he didn't, because Steph Curry's also an elite scorer, and so is Klay Thompson. So it'll be interesting to see what he's able to do in Brooklyn once he's able to rehab the tear in his Achilles, and if he had any other trouble with his ankle and calf, we'll see. But I'm sure he's going to come back and show us why he's a former MVP. But he's got to be in there for sure. One thing I forgot to mention about LeBron James is that LeBron James, although he is some think only a 4-time MVP, he could be a 6 or 7-time MVP. The year after he lost in the NBA Finals in 2006-2007 season against Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs, which were headed by Tim Duncan, who's one of the greatest players of all time, along with Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, also 2 outstanding players. Many people discredit LeBron because he lost that series, 4-0. They got swept. It was arguably one of LeBron's worst teams that he took to the NBA Finals, and I think many people would say it might be. But, again, the year after that, he came back, and ultimately, I believe he didn't win the MVP the year after that season, but he certainly should have. His statistics were dominant. If you look at any of his advanced statistics in terms of being one of the most dominant players offensively and defensively, feel free to go check those out online, because there's a very strong case that LeBron could have more MVPs. He could be even more decorated. But, there's not really too many players that are more decorated than LeBron James. But yeah, aside from him and KD, there are a few more players that I would say are either already top 25, and now I believe both of those players, Kevin Durant and LeBron, are currently top 25, but there are also some players that I think will be eventually top 25, just to keep that in mind that not everybody who I'm mentioning is currently in the top 25 all time. But this next player his name's Steph Curry. He might be the best three-point shooter of all time. I think many people would argue that, along with the likes of Ray Allen and Reggie Miller. Steph Curry might be the best spot-up shooter of all time. I think he's inspired a generation of players like Damian Lillard and Trae Young, who are pulling up from the logo and have kind of made that a part of their status, what people attribute their skills to. Because when you look at Damian Lillard as a three-point shooter and the things that he's done this past season in the NBA, he's got some deep range. He's got some game winners, obviously one against Houston. That would have been 2 years ago now in the first round of the NBA playoffs. If you haven't seen that shot, you should watch it. And then again, I believe when Portland took on OKC in Game 6 of the first round last year, he also silenced OKC and went on to the next round. He's another great player. I wouldn't put him in the top 20. I don't think he'll be in the top 25 all time, but he's one of my favorite players in the NBA right now, and certainly I hope he's able to win a championship, because I think Damian Lillard's one of those guys that's a little bit underestimated, underrated. But yeah, Steph Curry is top 25 all time right now for me, and for the people that don't have him in there, by the time he's done his career, you better put him in there. The next player that I think is not currently top 25, but I think it's very tough. He's probably just entering the top 25 conversation now. But I mean, he was dominant last year. He's a two-time NBA champ in both of the NBA titles that his team won in 2014 and 2019. He was the NBA Finals MVP. That man's Kawhi Leonard. And when we're talking about one of the best all-around players to play the game all the time, one of the best players on both sides of the ball, very hard not to put that man in the conversation, because we're looking at a three-time NBA all first team in defense, and I think there's a very good case that he could maybe have 4 or 5 or 6 defensive first teams selection, all NBA team selections, and he made some second teams. I think he made 2. He's made 2 NBA defensive second teams, but I mean, like I said, he's one of the best defensive players we've seen in recent time and in the league right now. Certainly one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and he's a 2-time champ with 2 different teams, and he's proven himself. There's a clip that came up on Instagram the other day when the Spurs played the Heat in the NBA Finals. I'm gonna mess up the year right now, but I want to say it was in 2012. I'll have to probably make a comment correcting myself on that one. But Kawhi Leonard, aside from that, I'm getting distracted. Kawhi Leonard comes on the floor. This is before Kawhi Leonard kind of made a big splash in the NBA and what we now know is one of the greatest players in the league as of today. He was averaging, I think, 9 points in that finals or something like that. He wasn't the superstar of the team. It was still Tim Duncan, but he was kind of looked as this new player that was evolving with the Spurs. And he checks in, and LeBron James says that he looks at one of his teammates. He says, "Jesus, this guy's checking back in. He's one of the most just physical dominating forces that is going to wreak havoc on the league for years to come." So I think that says enough that we're talking about AKA the GOAT, AKA the King, LeBron James, saying something as much as geez, this guy is back on the floor. So that's why I think Kawhi is if not already in the top 25 all time, he's going to be there soon. There's 2 more players that I don't think are in the top 25 all time right now. I don't know if they're going to get to top 25 all time status, but with a championship on their resume, both of them would certainly probably join that list, that exclusive list. And the first one I want to mention is James Harden. And here's the thing: we're looking at a former MVP. I think he should have won MVP over Giannis last year. Not to take anything away from Giannis, he had a phenomenal season as well. But I think he should probably be a two-time MVP. He's a two-time scoring champion on his way to a third scoring title in 2020. If that doesn't say enough, 3 straight scoring titles in the NBA right now at such a competitive stage. I don't know what else to say. He's again got so much in his arsenal. He's a great passer of the ball. He's taken over point guard duties and ball handling duties with his team. Even when Chris Paul was playing in Houston, I mean, if that doesn't say enough, Chris Paul is one of the best ball handlers we've seen all time. Don't know where he would, in terms of a list, where he would rank, but he's an elite ball handler, and yet, James Harden's dribbling the ball up the floor and acting as one of the leaders on that team for a good reason. I mean, like I said, 3-time scoring champion, and with an NBA title, there's a good chance that we're going to see him in the top 25 list. The last player I would like to mention is a man known as the Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, Shaq deemed him Superman. Now, if that doesn't say enough, in my mind, Shaq in his prime days, just before he left Orlando, and just as he started playing with the Lakers, again, the Lakers won 3 championships in a row, and many analysts, many people, including myself, believe that Shaq is the most dominating player of all time. Now you're calling Giannis Superman, and that's one of Shaq's favorite players. And he's a Greek freak. He's a superior force in the NBA. We're talking about a guy that came into the league, I want to say, in about 2013, 2014 he was drafted, and he wasn't a very big guy. He's put on 50 pounds, I believe. Most of that's muscle. I think maybe 50 pounds of muscle. It was something ridiculous. But I love Giannis. He's a great basketball player. He's an MVP. And he's certainly the MVP this year in my mind. So he's going to be a back-to-back MVP, and with a title. What can you argue? He's getting better every year that he's been in the league physically. His passing, his shooting. Now he's starting to take threes, and he's hitting threes. Very scary player in the NBA, and it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. If there are any more players that I forgot that you believe are already in the top 25 that are currently playing in the NBA, or that you believe will make the top 25 players of all time one day, please let me know. There's obviously a lot of youngsters. Luka Doncic is a player that I could see making the top 25.